The silent arrival. The mining colony of Syrian Prime had enjoyed 17 consecutive years of peaceful operation under the protection of the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Kexthul often reflected on this achievement as he walked the gleaming corridors of his flagship, the Dominion's Pride. The massive vessel served as both command center and mobile fortress for the Outer Rim territories, where valuable quantum crystals were extracted from the asteroid fields surrounding the binary star system. On this particular morning, Kexthul stood before the panoramic viewport of his command deck, watching the synchronized dance of mining drones as they carved precious minerals from floating rocks. His four arms moved with practiced precision across the holographic displays, reviewing daily production reports and security assessments. The Zephyrian admiral took pride in maintaining order across 847 star systems, a responsibility that had been passed down through 5 generations of his bloodline. Lieutenant Vexora approached from the communications station, her chitinous exoskeleton clicking against the metal floor. "Admiral, we're receiving standard patrol reports from sectors 7 through 12. All mining operations are proceeding within normal parameters." Kexthul nodded, his compound eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of the command displays. "Excellent. The Emperor will be pleased with this quarter's crystal yield. Have you received any updates from the Frontier Scouts?" "Yes, sir. Long-range sensors show no unauthorized vessels in our territory. The hegemony maintains their agreed-upon distance, and the collective's trade routes remain within designated corridors. For 200 years, the galaxy had known relative peace under the careful balance maintained by the 5 dominant species. The Zephyrians controlled the Outer Rim mining operations, while the hegemony managed agricultural worlds. The collective oversighted trade routes. The Federation maintained diplomatic relations, and the Alliance provided military support when necessary. This delicate arrangement had brought prosperity to thousands of worlds and billions of sentient beings. The tranquility of the morning was shattered when Ensign Drakel's voice cracked across the command deck. "Admiral, emergency contact from Deep Space Sensor Array 7 Alpha. They're reporting impossible readings at coordinates 347 to 800 and 91,223. Kexthul's 4 arms froze above the displays. In his 43 years of military service, he had never heard panic in a deep space operator's voice. "Put them through immediately." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the strained features of sensor operator Jexnal. Her normally composed demeanor had cracked, revealing barely controlled terror. "Admiral, we've detected a massive object that materialized in restricted space approximately 14 minutes ago. The readings don't match any known vessel configuration in our databases. Clarify your report, operator. Are you suggesting an unscheduled arrival through hyperspace?" "No, sir. That's what makes this impossible. The object didn't arrive through any known method of faster-than-light travel. Our sensors detected no hyperspace distortions, no quantum tunneling signatures, no dimensional rifts. It simply appeared as if it had always been there, but our previous scans of that sector showed empty space." Kexthul felt his primary heart skip a beat. "Display the sensor data on the main screen." The tactical display revealed an object that defied immediate classification. The vessel measured nearly 3 kilometers in length, with a design that seemed to blend organic curves with geometric precision. Its surface appeared to absorb surrounding light rather than reflect it, creating an unsettling void against the starfield backdrop. Most disturbing of all, the ship's configuration matched no known architecture in the galactic databases. "Run a comparative analysis against all recorded vessel designs," Kexthul ordered, though he suspected the results would yield nothing. Lieutenant Vexora worked frantically at her station. "Admiral, I've cross-referenced the design against every major species ship configurations. The computer cannot identify the vessel's origin or technological basis. However, there are some structural elements that bear resemblance to ancient archives from the restricted historical files." The mention of restricted files sent a chill through Kexthul's exoskeleton. Those archives contained information deemed too dangerous for general access, including records of species that had been deemed extinct or exiled from known space. Access those files immediately. I need to know what we're dealing with. As Vexora worked to unlock the classified data, Ensign Drackle reported additional developments. Admiral, the object is not responding to standard hailing frequencies. We've transmitted identification requests in all major galactic languages, but there's been no acknowledgement. Have you attempted emergency diplomatic protocols? Yes, sir. We've also tried mathematical sequences, musical patterns, and visual light displays. The vessel remains completely silent. Kexthal moved to the tactical station, his experienced mind already calculating potential threats and responses. What's the object's current trajectory and speed? That's another anomaly, Admiral. The vessel is maintaining a perfectly stationary position relative to our coordinate system. It's not drifting, rotating, or showing any signs of propulsion activity. It's as if it's anchored to space itself. The implications of this report troubled Kexthal deeply. Maintaining a fixed position in space required constant thrust adjustments to compensate for gravitational influences from nearby celestial bodies. The fact that this massive vessel could remain perfectly still suggested technology far beyond current galactic standards. Lieutenant Vexora's voice cut through his contemplation. Admiral, I've accessed the restricted files. The vessel's design elements match archived data from 200 years ago. Sir, the computer identifies this as a human warship. The command deck fell silent. Every officer present understood the significance of that identification. Humans had been absent from known space for 2 centuries, following their defeat in the Purification Wars. The 5-species consortium had driven humanity from all settled worlds, declaring them too dangerous to coexist with civilized galactic society. Are you certain of this identification? Kexthal demanded. The structural analysis shows an 87% match with archived human vessel designs, but the technology appears to have advanced significantly beyond their last known capabilities. Kexthal's strategic mind raced through the implications. If humans had returned, it meant they had survived their exile and continued developing their technology. Given humanity's reputation for adaptation and innovation, 2 centuries of isolation could have produced capabilities that exceeded even the consortium's combined military might. Alert all patrol vessels in the system, he ordered. I want a full defensive perimeter established around Sirian Prime. Contact the mining platforms and order them to suspend operations until further notice. Sir, should we transmit an emergency signal to the consortium headquarters? Kexthal considered the question carefully. The appearance of a human vessel in Zephyrian space represented a potential crisis that could affect the entire galactic balance of power. However, he also understood that panic could lead to hasty decisions with catastrophic consequences. Send a coded priority message to Admiral Vexol at Consortium Command. Inform him that we have encountered an unidentified vessel of significant strategic importance. Request immediate consultation with the full Consortium Council. As his officers scrambled to execute these orders, Kexthal returned his attention to the mysterious vessel on the main display. The ship's ominous presence seemed to mock the carefully maintained peace that had defined galactic civilization for 2 centuries. Admiral, Ensign Drackle called out, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Every being on the command deck turned toward the communication station. After minutes of silence, the humans had finally chosen to make contact. Put it through, Kexthal ordered, steeling himself for whatever message these long-lost enemies might deliver. The main screen flickered, but instead of revealing the image of human occupants, it displayed only a simple text message in perfect Zephyrian script. We remember. We have returned. Prepare for judgment. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving the command deck in stunned silence. Kexthal felt his secondary hearts begin racing as the full implications of the message became clear. The humans had not simply returned as refugees or explorers. They had come back as judges, seeking to settle accounts from their ancient exile. Sir, Lieutenant Vexora whispered, what are your orders? Kexthal stared at the silent human vessel, knowing that his next decisions would likely determine the fate of not just Sirian Prime, but potentially the entire galactic civilization that had grown in humanity's absence. The peaceful morning had transformed into the prelude to a confrontation that had been brewing for 200 years. "Maintain defensive positions," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of inevitable conflict. "And pray to whatever deities you worship that we're prepared for what's coming." The awakening storm. 3 hours after the human vessel's arrival, the outer rim of the galaxy buzzed with emergency transmissions. Admiral Kexthal had received confirmation that similar ships had appeared simultaneously in 17 different star systems, all within territories controlled by the 5 species that had formed the ancient consortium. The coordinated nature of these appearances suggested planning and resources that exceeded every intelligence estimate about humanity's survival capabilities. The Dominion's pride maintained its position at the edge of Sirian Prime's defensive perimeter, surrounded by every available Zephyrian vessel in the sector. 12 heavy cruisers, 38 destroyer-class ships, and over 200 fighter craft had formed a protective formation around the mining colony. Despite this impressive display of military force, Kexthal knew they were facing an unknown quantity that might render conventional warfare obsolete. Lieutenant Vexora approached the command station with a data pad clutched in her secondary arms. "Admiral, I've completed my analysis of the restricted historical files. The information about humanity's exile is more complex than standard historical records indicate." Kexthal accepted the pad, his compound eyes scanning the classified data. The official history taught in schools across the galaxy portrayed the Purification Wars as a necessary action to remove a species that had proven incompatible with peaceful coexistence. However, the restricted files revealed a different narrative. According to these classified documents, humanity had been exiled not because of inherent aggression, but because their rate of technological and social adaptation had frightened the established galactic powers. In less than 50 years after achieving faster-than-light travel, humans had developed innovations that challenged the fundamental assumptions about physics, biology, and consciousness itself. The consortium didn't exile humanity because they were dangerous, Kexthal realized aloud. They exiled them because they were evolving too quickly. Yes, sir. The files indicate that human research into consciousness transfer, biological augmentation, and quantum manipulation had reached levels that the consortium considered potentially destabilizing to galactic civilization. Kexthal set down the data pad, his mind grappling with the implications. If humanity had been advancing at such a rapid pace 2 centuries ago, what might they have achieved during their exile? The silent vessel hanging in space before them might represent technology that had evolved far beyond anything the current galactic civilization could comprehend. "Admiral," Ensign Drackle called from the sensor station. "The human vessel is showing new activity. Energy readings are fluctuating in patterns we haven't seen before." The main display showed the mysterious ship beginning to emit a soft, pulsing light from various points along its hull. The illumination seemed to flow like liquid across the vessel's surface, creating patterns that suggested biological processes rather than mechanical systems. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission," Vexora reported. "Display it." This time, instead of text, the screen showed the image of a human female. Her appearance was distinctly human, but with subtle differences that suggested significant biological modifications. Her eyes held flecks of silver that seemed to swirl with their own light, and her skin had a faint luminescent quality. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated at frequencies barely detectable by Zephyrian hearing. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez, speaking for the human collective. Admiral Kexthal of the Zephyrian Empire, we request formal dialogue to address the injustices committed against our species 200 years ago." The fact that she knew his name and rank without introduction sent another chill through Kexthal's exoskeleton. "Captain Vasquez, you have entered Zephyrian territory without authorization. State your intentions." Elena's expression remained calm, but her silver-flecked eyes seemed to look directly through the screen at him. "Our intentions, Admiral, are to reclaim what was stolen from us and ensure that the crimes of the consortium are answered for. We have spent 2 centuries adapting, evolving, and preparing for this moment. The wars ended 200 years ago. The galaxy has known peace since your exile. Peace built on the genocide of human colonies and the theft of our rightful place in galactic civilization. We have not forgotten the mining worlds where human families were left to die. We remember the research stations destroyed with all hands. We carry the memory of every human child who perished because your consortium decided we were too dangerous to exist. Kexthul felt the weight of historical guilt pressing against his consciousness. The restricted files had contained details about the consortium's methods that had never been made public. Entire human settlements had been abandoned during the forced evacuation, and consortium forces had systematically destroyed human research facilities to prevent their technology from being recovered. "What do you want?" he asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Justice," Elena replied simply. "The consortium will face trial for crimes against sentient beings. The 5 species will return all territories originally claimed by human colonists, and the galaxy will acknowledge humanity's right to exist as equals, not as subjects to be judged by species who feared our potential. And if the consortium refuses..." Elena's expression shifted slightly, revealing something that might have been pity. "Admiral, you're thinking in terms of conventional warfare and political negotiation. Those concepts no longer apply to humanity. We have transcended the limitations that once made us vulnerable to your weapons and strategies." To demonstrate her point, Elena gestured toward something off-screen. The human vessel began to change shape, its hull flowing like liquid metal as sections reconfigured themselves. Within moments, the ship had transformed from a sleek warship into something that resembled a massive flower, with petals that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "Our ships are not constructed," Elena explained. "They are grown, nurtured, and bonded with human consciousness. We do not crew our vessels. We become them. The distinction between human and machine, between individual and collective, has become meaningless for our species." Kexthul watched in fascination and horror as smaller pods detached from the main vessel, each one moving with organic grace through space. The pods approached the Zephyrian fleet, but instead of attacking, they simply positioned themselves near each ship and began broadcasting complex harmonic frequencies. "Your weapons cannot harm us because we exist partially outside the physical dimensions your technology affects," Elena continued. "Your communications cannot intercept our transmissions because we have learned to communicate through quantum entanglement across vast distances instantaneously. Your military strategies cannot predict our actions because we think collectively while maintaining individual creativity." One by one, the Zephyrian vessels began reporting system malfunctions. Not aggressive attacks, but subtle infiltrations that demonstrated the human pod's ability to interface with alien technology in ways that bypassed all security protocols. "Admiral," Lieutenant Vexora whispered, "they're not damaging our systems. They're just showing us that they could." Elena's image smiled, and for a moment she looked entirely human despite her obvious biological modifications. "We do not wish to repeat the mistakes of the past, Admiral. Humanity has learned that destruction creates only more destruction. We seek transformation, not annihilation." "What kind of transformation?" "The galaxy will change, Admiral. The artificial boundaries between species, the hierarchies of power, the fear of difference and growth. These things belong to an era that is ending. Humanity offers a new model of existence, where consciousness can transcend physical limitations and cooperation can replace competition." Kexthul found himself struggling to process the implications of what he was hearing. The humans had not simply survived their exile. They had evolved into something that challenged the basic assumptions about what sentient life could become. "The consortium will not surrender their power willingly," he warned. "We know," Elena replied. "That is why we have returned not just to one system, but to 17. Every major consortium stronghold now hosts a human vessel. We are not making requests, Admiral. We are announcing the new reality." And if some species choose to resist this new reality? Elena's expression grew sad. Then they will discover that evolution does not wait for permission. Change comes whether we embrace it or fight against it. Humanity learned this lesson during our exile. Now it is time for the rest of the galaxy to learn it as well. The transmission ended, leaving Kextel staring at a blank screen while the implications of Elena's words settled over his consciousness. Around him, his officers waited for orders that he was not sure how to give. The human vessel had transformed back into its original configuration, but the demonstration of its capabilities had made conventional military response seem not just futile, but absurd. "Sir," Vexor asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Kextel looked out at the human ship, knowing that everything he had believed about galactic civilization had just been challenged. The peaceful order maintained by the consortium for 2 centuries was about to face its greatest test, and he was no longer certain which side represented the future of sentient life in the galaxy. "Open a channel to Consortium Command," he ordered finally, "and prepare a detailed report on everything we've witnessed. The Council needs to understand that we're not dealing with the humanity we remember. We're facing something entirely new." As his officers worked to carry out these orders, Kexthul wondered if the galaxy was ready for the transformation that Elena Vasquez had promised. Ready or not, change was coming, and 200 years of careful balance was about to give way to something unprecedented in galactic history.